Industry briefing session for the upcoming fire service maintenance contracts. As I said, we're hoping to go to tender on Friday or at the latest on Wednesday next week. We had aimed to go to tender tomorrow so that you'd have all this fresh in your mind and ready to go to tender tomorrow. We're here today to go through all the upcoming opportunities for hard and soft as well. To demonstrate our continuous improvement, the way that we tender, the way that we're simplifying our processes for the industry, and to give you an opportunity to ask any questions and to clarify any queries that you have about our tendering process. Over the past 5 years, we've gone through all reviews and feedbacks that we've had about our tendering, and we've hopefully reduced some red tape with the upcoming tenders where we've packaged them up into smaller contracts and given opportunities to more smaller companies. QBuild as a business, we're offering better services for Queenslanders and better value for money for our clients as well and for the people of Queensland. QBuild is a business. We make up cover off many different areas of construction, delivery of projects, designing of buildings and consultation, and management of breakdown services, call centers, and of course service maintenance. We also, over the last 2 years, we've been doing a drive for employment of technicians and improvement of the upskilling of technicians throughout Queensland and regional Queensland. For service maintenance, we manage all service maintenance for a large portion of departments within the Queensland government, including Department of Education, Queensland Police, Department of Corrections and Communities, Justice, and Communities. We've been constantly streamlining the service maintenance product by, say, including the web portal, and we've also improved the way that we manage our contracts and also the technical specifications. We've also improved our condition assessments, getting out of the paper world into an electronic world and trying to streamline that through the web portal back to us as well. Over the past year with COVID-19, we've also gone to online meetings using Microsoft Teams and trying to keep everything remote as well out of the office. Over the past couple of tenders that we've done, we've got a little bit of feedback saying that the tender timeframes have been short, where it's been 3 to 4 weeks. So this time we're going with a 6-week tender time. For these tenders, there is no site visits required. So you're looking at whatever documentation is presented in front of you and tendering on that. And we've updated our pricing and non-pricing workbooks. So therefore our 5-year workbooks, and some of the feedback again we got from the last tender we've incorporated into the new workbooks, and we've got rid of some of the prehistoric questions and modernized them as well. I'll go through the contract docs, the contract management plan, and any additional information and resources and where to get them from. And at the end of this, we'll talk about questions and answers. As I said, QBuild procure the delivery of buildings, so that's from pre-design right all the way through construction and post-construction to service maintenance. So we look after the life of an entire product of a building. And we're always looking to improve our processes and to improve any outcomes for our clients as well. We've got 6 different regions. Southeast Queensland, Southwest Queensland, Wide Bay, Central Queensland, North Queensland, and Far North Queensland. And in each of those regions, we've got multiple different offices as well. Amazingly, we actually outsource over 90% of our work to the industry. And we do that through a variety of sourcing solutions, like project management of construction teams. And for service maintenance, we primarily look after statutory service maintenance. So in Southeast Queensland, it's not our head office. Our head office is actually in Brisbane, but the Southeast Queensland region, our office is in Cannon Hill, and we cover off areas up to just north of Caloundra, all the way down to the New South Wales border and all the way west across to the ranges. We've got 3 offices. We've got one out west in Ipswich, one at Sunshine Coast, and one at the Gold Coast, and one in Cannon Hill actually as well. Southwest Queensland, do everywhere across to Western Australia and South Australia. It covers off actually quite a lot of regional areas. They're going to tender as well for fire service maintenance contracts pretty soon. We've got the Bundaberg office, which is for Wide Bay. Again, they're going to tender quite soon as well with their fire contracts. They've got one office there in Bundaberg. Central Queensland, it's my understanding that they're going to break theirs up into 2 contracts, one in the urban area and one in the rural area. They're out to tender at the moment, so if any of you are interested in looking at a current package, you can look at the Central Queensland fire contracts. North Queensland covers a vast amount of area, probably the largest area of all of our contracts. They've got a lot of good sites in Townsville, but also you'd have to consider servicing all the way out as far as Doomagee and Mount Isa, so it's quite a large region. And we also have Far North Queensland, which covers off a lot of areas that are hard to get to in remote areas for fire service maintenance. And you have to be considerate of the seasonal changes up there as well when tendering. QBuild are an enabler of a lot of products for our clients. So we enable them to move between offices. We renovate all their offices. We do facility management services for some of the large high-rise buildings, correctional centers. So we enable them to get an awful lot of activity streamlined. We also do a lot of soft cleaning contracts for a lot of our clients, and that includes horticultural and cleaning of areas and office spaces. We do most service maintenance, but not all service maintenance. Upcoming in Southeast Queensland, we're going out with the vast majority of our fire contracts. We're also going to be later on tendering in about 2 weeks to lift contracts. And we've got a couple of soft contracts for cleaning and horticulture, which are going out, I think, within the next week or 2 as well. You can find all the tender packages on QTender, but as was explained to me, QTender is the advertising platform for all of our documents, which will inevitably be uploaded through eTender. But eTender are where all the documents sit. So any works which are approximately over $5,000, we will go through a quoting process. So some of those are just direct to market quotes, but anything over 20,000, we would tend to use eTender for going out for those works. And of course, any construction projects or renovation projects, we'd also be using eTender. So there's no harm in getting registered on QTender or eTender and keeping an eye out for plenty of opportunities that are coming through there, not just for service maintenance, but for all scopes of work with QBuild. Hard facility maintenance, so our services include HVAC for all air conditioning, essential services associated with HVAC as well, so all your smoke spool fans, stable pressurization. Electrical service maintenance, we cover off RCDs, emergency lighting, generators. Emergency lighting do fall into essential service maintenance, so some of the companies here today, they might have an electrician who would do fire detection, but can also do emergency lighting. So do keep an eye out for emergency lighting contracts over the next 2 to 3 years. I don't think we're going out this year for service maintenance for that product, but we would be in the future. Fire, so for all the fire products that you can possibly think of, we look after service maintenance for all those. Fixed equipment, so tools, lathes, ovens, dust extractors, we maintain and look after them for a vast majority of our clients. Transport, so lifts, dummy lifts, escalators, hoists, we look after all of that as well, and a lot of them are going out to tender next week. Hydraulics, sewage treatment plants, and the likes. For soft, we've got a couple of soft cleaning contracts coming up to tender next week. They include cleaning, pest control, hygiene, waste, horticultural contracts, landscaping, and so forth. So for all of QBuild statewide, we've got nearly 9,000 sites that we maintain, and we've got approximately 40,000 systems and nearly 1 million plant. So our equipment spreadsheets are quite large, and we maintain an awful lot of details in all of those plants. I'm not too sure how many contracts that we do have, but we've got a lot of contracts as well covering off all those systems. For soft service maintenance, we've got approximately 1,500 locations across the state. So again, so quite a lot of work there. And as you'd suspect, over the past year, they've been quite busy with COVID-19 and all the cleaning as well. And one of the innovations that we've done over the last 5-6 years is we brought in the web portal. It's now on a version 2. Through the web portal, we manage all of our service maintenance work orders, our breakdown activities, even some very large construction projects are all managed through the web portal. It's basically where we'll issue you work orders, and then you go onto the web portal and upload all the service maintenance documents, including all of your Form 15s, defect reports, Form 72s, Form 71s to that web portal as well. And on the presentation, it says it can take up to 5 minutes per work request. But I've talked to a few contractors who said that they've got that down to a couple of seconds, maybe 19 or 20 seconds per work order. So it depends on how good your staff are, how quickly you can process all of those work orders through the web portal. For some of our contracts, we're looking at 2,000-3,000 work orders per year, but you can work that out based on the frequency of the systems that are in their pricing workbooks and have a rough estimate how many work orders you'll be processing. But if we're looking at the likes of fire detection system, we've got 12 months of the year, that's 12 work orders. So space that across an entire contract, you can figure out that it adds up quite a lot. We used to have a hard copy condition assessment report, and that was quite convoluted, and an awful lot of the records didn't always get actioned. So we transferred that into an electronic spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is quite good to work with. If you've got a good software programmer, they can probably build that into some of your software and get the technicians to populate the data while they're on site. The condition assessments is, in fire, we issue it once a year, and then we expect the contractors to submit it continuously when they do their major services. It is in this format, so you can see we've got all the systems and plant. So everything that is a yellow cell or a blank cell, we expect the contractor to populate when they're doing the condition assessments. There's rating tools for you to put in there, and we've got instructions that go behind this whole tool as well. But it can get quite big. This one particular spreadsheet for 3 or 4 contracts, they got 10,000 lines. So it's a lot of data that needs to be populated. And of course, everything that is populated would need to be vetted and double checked by the technician when he's reviewing it. We also have brought in a KPI tool, and we've improved that over the past 5-6 years. And we've also clarified how it's calculated and getting it uniform, not just in Southeast Queensland, between all the contracts Southeast Queensland, but hopefully statewide. We keep and track all those KPIs as well, so we work closely with our contractors to try and improve that and get your KPIs above the satisfactory requirement. Any feedback with the KPIs we take on board quite seriously, and we try and improve them as well. In the invitation to offer, we have split up all of the contracts in Southeast Queensland to smaller regions within Southeast Queensland, and in regional Queensland as well. They have and are constantly evaluating and reviewing all of their breakups of the contracts, where they're located and what type of complexities that they apply to each of the contracts. We want to bring on board as many competitive suppliers as we can and try and give them an opportunity across a wide range of contracts as possible. So you'll see that with the fire contracts, where we've got low complexity contracts for just extinguishers, portables, a bit of smoke detection, as opposed to a high complexity contract that's got everything in it, from phase out hydrant sprinklers. So we're trying to give those small local suppliers a lot better of an opportunity. We do have some how-to guides, so not only just how to tender for these packages, but also ongoing how-tos, how to do a critical defect, how to classify what's a local alarm panel, and all the time trying to offer value for money when we're doing the contracts. The whole of government has got, Queensland government has got a procurement management framework, which is based off the plan, and that's continuously updated to give a much clearer and rewarding information for strong performing contractors and to help us improve our processes all the time. So we're always looking at ways to improve our processes, and for these tenders now we've included a contract management plan. Whenever when a contract is usually set up, you establish the contract management plan after it's set up, but we've got a template that we've included in the tender packages today, and you can, I'll go through that just quite briefly, but do have a good close detail read of the actual plan, so you're familiar how we do our processes and what we're expecting throughout the next 5 years. We do have a 5-year with an option to extend option on this contract, these contracts. So all the contracts will be 5 years with an option to extend. The other contracts which are going to be released, the fire and lift, the lift and soft contracts. In the invitation to offer documents, it clarifies their contract term and the options to extend. Now, I'm not too familiar with them, but most of them are around 3 and 2 year. Our contracts are 5 years because it encompasses the AS 1851 5-year major service. So we'd like to get that underdone once per contract term as per our scheduled date for that major service. We're looking for contractors who, in the tenders, who have got good records for workplace health and safety, and who have a zero harm focus for workplace health and safety, which is vast majority of you all here. We want to, in people's submissions, see them demonstrate that they've got the capability and capacity to do all the work that we're doing. Some of these are not small contracts, they're actually quite big. And for example, like the schools, we'd like to get all the schools done. If they have major services in January, when you've only a week to do them, the company would need the capacity to be able to do all those services and to do them in a professional and timely manner. Now, that's not just getting the work done, but also getting the work submitted back through us through the web portal and attend monthly meetings as well. QBuild have got a big push for engagement of apprentices, but unfortunately the fire service maintenance contracts don't have the training requirement within them. So when you go through the conditions of contract, you'll notice that the training requirements is not applicable to these contracts. And we're also looking for contractors who will work with QBuild to continuously improve your processes, but also our processes as well. So over the next couple of months, we intend to go to tender in the next, as I said, by hopefully close of business Friday week. And within the next 3 weeks, we'll have all of our hard and soft contracts that we're going to call out to tender. We're going with a 6-week tender period, so that's quite long and quite generous. So if you have any questions, please ask them up front. Give us a lot of time to respond to you, and we will respond in a very timely manner. But it's a good time that no matter what questions you have, do submit them to us. Don't feel uncomfortable in populating data that you're not too sure what it's about. Do send in a information request to us, and we've got the 6 weeks to work together to get tenders submitted. Evaluation will take approximately 4 weeks after the tender closes in April, and then we'll be awarding them, and with a quite quick turnaround after that evaluation period, looking to engage in startup meetings around the 1st of June with a commencement of contract in July. That'll also give you like a 4-week period to get all security clearances done. So for correctional centers, getting your Form 9As completed in a good timely manner for commencement in July. The work orders will be created beginning of June, so we can give you a schedule of work for the entire year as well and get you all prepared. We've got 12 fire contracts which are going to be tendered. They're all broken up into the 3 different regions, so Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, Brisbane Metro, into low, medium and high complexity contracts. Now, low being primarily housing sites, medium being primarily schools, and then high complexity being all the rest of the sites. Now, in the high complexity, you might have a simple fire portables in an electorate office, but even though that service is nice and easy to get done, the actual complexity is more in arrangement of the services getting to site and getting in and out of those areas. We've broken up the Brisbane Metro medium contract for schools into 2 different contracts, one being north of the Brisbane River and the other one being the south of the Brisbane River. We also have the correctional centres, which previously was tendered with Department of Justice offices and their Class 5 buildings in the actual contract, but this time it's purely and solely just the correctional centres. So getting in and out of those correctional centres will take more time, and the inductions will take longer than any other site, typically in Southeast Queensland. So you need to take that into consideration when tendering for that. Our codes will all look like this, so QBuild, Hard FM, Southeast Queensland Fire, and then all the package numbers at the end of them. In the invitation to offer, it'll actually clarify what the description is as well. So you don't need to memorize this. We can provide that to you in the actual tender documents. There's been changes, as I said, to the pricing workbook and to the non-pricing workbook in comparison to the previous years. Some of the changes that we have done have actually been really good. We noticed over the past couple of years where we requested people to put in pricing, that there was a lot of cells that were not priced, but this tool that we've implemented now will actually highlight that, and you do have the option to have it automatically populate all the data for you. Just looking for the in the pricing workbook, every cell that is populated blue will require you to fill it out. At the first 2 tabs, we've got pricing instructions. So there's quite a lot of instructions, what's what you need to fill out and what it means. This is just a template. We have this tender period around. We have removed a lot of non-essential columns, such as a 3-yearly service. They under the plant equipment, we've got rid of everything to do with mechanical out of the fire contract, so it should present a lot easier and you shouldn't have to do so much scrolling. One of the features that we've put in here is percentage increase for year 2. Now, you as a tender, you can choose to put in the same price for every single year. So if you put in $100 in that system, it will automatically populate the rest of the spreadsheet with just $100. Now you can choose to override that price, which is just a simple formula, and you can put in whatever price you want, but then the next year will be reflective of that same price. The tool that we have here, percentage increase, is where you can turn around and say you want to apply a 2% CPI to that price from year 1, sorry, in this case from year 2 to year 3, and it will apply that CPI increase. Now the tool would need to be populated per year, so you need to put in that CPI increase per year if you want to add on 2% every year, or you can just put it in once and leave it at that. When we have a service that has a 5-yearly service, so let's say we have 5 yearly at year 3, the spreadsheet is smart enough to know that the yearly price from year 2 will have a CPI from year 3, a CPI from year 4, and then apply that to year 4. That's if you choose to populate the percentage increase. Within the pricing schedule, we have, we'll detail out all the sites and all the equipment that are to be priced. You can't pick and choose what systems and what plant that you want to populate. We require you to populate all the plant, all the sites, all the systems. If you were to leave a couple of cells blank, we'll consider that an alternative offer and then decide during the evaluation period how to evaluate that. But of course, we'll go back to you and ask you first off, was it a mistake? You are to price as per all the information that's in the contract and in the tender provided, and not what you know. If you know there's more systems on site, please price based on the information that we've provided to you. If there's any differences in the contract, we'll issue them through variations post-tender and work through it with each other. On the spreadsheet, also keep an eye on the major service month. So you got major service month, keep an eye on that because that is the month when the major service is due. So it'll be the yearly on the fire detection, the yearly for the fire portables. We've tried to spread that out as much as possible over the previous couple of years with the incumbents. And we've been able to demonstrate that the actual current scheduling works, and we do not intend on shifting or changing those major service months. Under the major service date, that is the exact date that schedule is scheduled for, and most of these are just set for the 15th. Now, the 15th is a fictional date within the month, but you can choose after tender what month of the day that you choose. What day of the month did you choose to do the service? So if you're saying you're going to site on the 2nd of every single month, let us know and we'll populate that data. And then your KPI will be based on the tolerance around that exact date. That's the one thing that we can work with. The maintenance scope will identify C or a P, meaning comprehensive or preventative service maintenance. And thank you to the individual who pointed out that issue with the Central Queensland tender. We've included it here, but I can confirm that for all the fire service maintenance contracts in Southeast Queensland, They are all preventative service maintenance contracts. There is no comprehensive KPI and no monitoring of the breakdown of the comprehensive servicing in these contracts. All the works must be completed within the month of the major service month. We've got a schedule of rates tab within the spreadsheet. This is where we ask you to populate all your schedule of rates for additional services, such as an additional fire panel, or your labor rates, in particular to the works that you'll be doing for servicing. So if we need your technicians to spend another hour or two on site, we would base those variations on the pricing that you nominate here, including the non-attendance and the attendance fees. One of the improvements we made here was this yes or no cell for the CPE to be applied. Now, this is slightly different to the pricing schedule. In the pricing schedule, the CPI is what you choose to as the CPI. Now, if you choose to not populate that cell, it is your pricing that you nominate in the cells that will be applicable. You're not entitled to the Queensland Treasury CPI per year on those. It must be what you nominate. However, here in the schedule of rates, we do permit the Queensland Treasury CPI to be applied. And so if the Treasury said it was 1.98%, we'd increase your labour rate for that year by 1.98%. Or you can choose not to use Treasury CPI and populate all the data yourself for each year manually. So for example, where that would be handy is if you know that your union of plumbers are arguing for a 10% pay rise in year 3, you could just type in $110 in there to accommodate for that. Yeah. Within the pricing schedule, there's a tab, there's a whole entire column in here that talks about specification number. Now, that is where you find out what technical specification applies to what plant. So we'll have technical specifications for let's say for fire detection, you'd have fire detection with special hazard systems, and you would have a fire detection for a VESTA system. So keep a close eye on that, because that will basically tell you what the scope of work is that we want you to do for the particular plant that's nominated in the pricing workbook. There's also a column in here, is a condition assessment required? That will be a yes or a no. So generally it is a yes for all fire, with the exception of fire blankets and fire extinguishers. We do not expect you to do a condition assessment on extinguishers or blankets, but everything else we do. And that's down to a fire hydrant level detail. Also, keep an eye on the extended description column. Within the extended description column, that's where we identify specific requirements for our that particular system or that particular plant. So for fire hydrants, we turn around and we'll have the design requirement for the flow and the pressure nominated in there, where we actually know that flow or pressure. There'll also be data in there about let's say fire detection systems or after hour work. So for fire detection systems, we'll nominate the quantities of detectors, which is inclusive of smoke or heat, and quantities of manual call points. We might also include details in there, whether it's a local alarm panel or a full-blown fire detection system. For after-hour works, we'll nominate for the likes of courthouses that all the works for the major services, so your flow, your interface testing, your 5 yearly services must be done after hours. Now, when we talk about after hours, do keep an eye on the emergency warning and intercom system technical specification, because that nominates all major services are to be done after hours. Now, you can do the monthly aspect of that during hours, but they impacting on our client services, such as the testing of the loudspeakers, the measurement of the sound, that must all be done outside of business hours. There'll also be any site-specific requirements nominated in the extended description, such as fire ant sites, particular people whom to contact. That will be in there as well. Now, the fire extinguisher pricing, in our technical specification, we've asked you to amortize the pricing for fire extinguishers. So that will mean that your portables pricing will be based on the quantity, and the price that you'll be putting into the pricing workbook is your fixed price per extinguisher or per blanket multiplied by the quantity. So if there's 10 extinguishers on site and you charge $30 per extinguisher, inclusive of your 5 yearly swap out or pressure test, that will be, you'll have to populate a $300 price per service into the pricing workbook. So your pricing for the 6 monthly would be 300, and your pricing for the yearly would be 300. We're not asking you to populate the price per extinguisher, we're asking you to populate the total price. It's going to jump on to the non-pricing workbook. Now, most of these contracts are on a 50-50 pricing versus non-pricing weighting. So the non-pricing workbook is just as important, if not more important, than your pricing workbook. Again, all blue cells must be populated, and including your orange cells in the subcontractor tab as well. Now, even though the tender says that subcontracting is not permitted, what we mean is not permitted without approval. So if you get approval for subcontracting, you can subcontract, but all that needs to be submitted in full to the principal, including all the details of the subcontracting. So there is a tab here for subcontracting that allows you to populate that data. Now, on the non-pricing criteria, this is it's quite an important tab, and we'd like you to pay quite a lot of attention to it when populating it. So on the weighting, for the low complexity contracts that we have nominated an invitation to offer, they are based on a 50-50 weighting, 50% price, 50% non-pricing. For all the rest of the contracts, your ability as a company to deliver the work, to deliver it professionally, to deliver it consistently in a good manner is more important than price. So we've weighted them on a 40% pricing to 60% non-pricing weighting. So just go through some of the important points here. So under relevant experience, we're looking for your previous experience in relation to the technical areas similar to this contract. The scale of those past contracts, your role in doing those contracts will be considered. So do populate good data in there when you're doing it. We asked for the previous 5 contracts or 5 recent contracts. So please provide 5 or more when you're submitting that. We've got equipment categories such as fire detection, fire hydrants, fire sprinklers, fire domestic sprinklers. When populating that, it would be good if you could keep into those same terminology or use the terminology in AS 1851, which we based all of our categories off. Local presence, I've seen figures here where it just says 15. We would like you to provide more information in there than just saying yes or a number. So please, there's no harm in just talking about the strength of your business in the region. Do you have more subsidiary businesses or offices in other areas around the region? Do you have a headquarters, in Brisbane or in a different area of Australia? All that information is really good to know. Tell us a bit more about your background. Management of the contract. So this 2.5.1. There's a lot of clauses in the conditions of contract that refer to management of the contract. Not particularly those words, but other ways around it, such as reporting, management of the contract, monthly meetings. So when you're populating the data there, do have a look at that contract and keep that, do look at that document and keep that in mind when you're populating the data. Now, we can only evaluate you on what you submit. We can't turn around to Joe Bloggs in a different state and rely on him to give us information. They may not even know that he was involved. So whoever is evaluating this will only be able to evaluate on what you submit. So do submit as much information as you can. We look for offers that demonstrate the availability within your organization with appropriate management skills, together with effective management systems and methods appropriate to the management of this contract. So do look at the clauses that talk about appointing a representative who can make executive binding decisions and be available 24 hours a day. Reporting clause, as I said, that talks about the web portal, invoicing, service reports. It's all very important. Now, KPI 3 actually is impacted quite heavily by a contractor's ability to manage your invoices, turn up to meetings, improve KPIs, and getting all of your submissions to us through the web portal on time. So if you can't manage the contract in the back of office, it will quickly reflect through that into your KPI 3, which is all about getting the service done in full, on time, and within our tolerances. So again, I can't stress enough how important that clause is. Environmental management system is preferred, but not required. But if you do have any such systems in place, such as ISO 14001, or any other QA system, populate all that data there. It all helps. For track record, we ask for 3 reference checks, but we also look at your track record on file with QBuild procurement team. Okay. So now, over the past 5 years of managing the contract, we've taken note of all the improvements that could have been made, and we've actually gone ahead and made a lot of those improvements. Such a changes that we've made are inclusive of the new Queensland procurement policy, the amendments to the fire licensing, which is actually forthcoming on the 1st of May, and the BIF Act on-time payment policies. As I said, we've updated condition of contract, technical specifications, and we've also made a lot of improvements to our defect reporting processes, so we're tracking that a lot better. I'll just go through some of the contract documents, just so you're aware of where they're at and what we're doing. So in the invitation to offer, we have included the contract management plan. So we've never done that before. Now that's new. Under fire protection licensing, we have brought to your attention that whatever offer you provide to us must be in compliance with the upcoming fire protection licensing amendments, which are coming into effect on the 1st of May. Now, if you want to know more information about that, on the Department of Energy and Public Works webpage, there is a webpage that actually talks about the full detail of all the changes. Alternatively, you can talk to the Fire Protection Association or the National Fire Industry Association, as they've got some information as well. The FPA just put out a nice flyer during the week, which actually had an attachment of what some of the license changes were. Under the conditions of offer, there hasn't been too many changes made to this document. In fact, I think it's all exactly the same. Conditions of contract we have rewritten entirely, but in the rewrite, it's just a clarification of words, making all the definitions of the terminology the same throughout the entire contract documents. The intent of the document is exactly the same. As I said, the training policy is not required. Public liability insurance, we increased from the previous tender of 10 million up to 20 million, but I believe 20 million is basically typical of what a company would have. Payment, so the time for submission of your invoice is within 5 days of completing the work. And that's KPI 3, what I was talking about before. And we also do say 5 years with option to extend. And down at the very end of this document, we've included the ethical supplier mandate and the Queensland procurement policy updates into here as well. Shouldn't impact you too much, but we do require everyone who tenders to comply with the Queensland procurement policy and the ethical supplier mandate. The one that would have changed the most is the technical administration document. I'll just quickly go through here. So what we've updated is the normal hours. So normal hours means 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We've seen a lot of the fire companies put it to 3 and then charge after hours after 3 o'clock, but our clients work until 6. So we've aligned it to our clients based on their feedback. The definition of services is basically everything within the entire contract. So that's from inspection, the testing, the submitting of the documents through the web portal, submitting of summary reports to our client, and so forth. It covers off a wide range of things. I've also updated the major plan dates and added in inclusions about what that is. So where I talked about earlier on in the pricing workbook, it flows through now into the administration document where we're talking about the major plan date, how it's formatted, and how we apply the tolerances to it. So we're talking about the plan start date and the plan finish date. So we're making that a flow from this document right through to the work order spreadsheet that the awarding tender will get after he wins a contract. We also have kept the 5-day term in there for the submitting of invoices and documents through the web portal. The tolerances in the contract is quite tighter than AS 1851. Now, albeit these are our tolerances, so you got plus or minus 3 days for a monthly service, as where AS 1851 talks about 5 days. We've kept it a wee bit tighter. Now, if there are works such as doing a 5-yearly service in a fire hydrant system in a correctional center, where the actual length of time to do that work exceeds the tolerance, we're flexible with that. But at tender, we ask you to price based on this table. This is table 1. And when we're managing the contract together over the next 5 years, we'll iron out all of those other tolerances where we've got exceptions to the norm. The KPIs, we've updated the performance target and description of the KPIs. So we've made it more uniform in how we've been managing it over the past couple of years. and we've kept that quite clean. So they're there, have a read of them, and if you have any questions during the tender process, please submit questions to us. But you can see that the KPIs are quite high, so getting 95% of the work done is what we're looking for. In terms of getting 95% of the work orders done through the web portal, getting 90% of the 5% of the work done on time in the real world, and no injuries in the performance of doing that work. Now that's no number of reportable injuries. So if someone cuts their finger and it's not reportable, that won't impact your KPIs. So we're talking about reportable to WorkSafe Queensland or the Electrical Safety Office. Because these are also comprehensive contracts, not comprehensive contracts, KPI 4 does not apply to the contracts. So there's a lot of information in here that talks about comprehensive contracts and what their requirements are. You don't need to conform to them. Under the records of maintenance, we've put in a new section that specifically talks about fire protection systems, and this is what we would need you to do. Have a good close read of it. It's basically just a reflection of AS 1851 and the Building Fire Safety Regulation. So we've seen some national logbooks be submitted, and those national logbooks don't have the Queensland Building Fire Safety Regulation ticks and flicks on them. So we do say that, look, the industry standard logbooks for Queensland, we accept straight up front. But if you deviate from that, or you have got custom logbooks that have never been reviewed before by QBuild, we ask that you submit them to the principal with your offer before the offer closes, so that we can review them. Now, if we've got any concerns about that, we'll discuss that with you during the tender period and seek clarification or confirmation that you're going to conform to the Building Fire Safety Regulation or any issues that we identified. One other point here is that we're re-stressing the requirement to have a summary record for fire portables, fire hydrants, provided to the on-site representative within 1 week of the time of the service. That's straight out of AS 1851. Now, we're making the onus on the contractor to actually print that and to provide that hard copy on site within 1 week. Emailing the record to them and not giving them a hard copy doesn't conform to AS 1851. So we've clarified that that's not acceptable. Provision of the yearly condition report, the critical defect reports, that's all set out in the in here and also in the contract management plan. Any and all defects are also to be identified to us and submitted to us on your service reports or in terms of quotes. Client notification is now 48 hours. So it used to previously be 1 day, 24 hours, but we allow that to be a telephone or an email. Now, if you do send an email, you're required to get a confirmation of that email back from the client. Security clearances must be provided to us for all your technicians within a certain period of the tender award. So do have a look out for that clause. That's that. In terms of the technical specifications, I'll just load up one example. So we've rewritten all of these and we've made them all uniform. Everything is exactly the same in terms of scope and minimum standards and qualifications and so forth. But what we've done here under frequency and tolerances is we've rewritten this slightly. So we've clarified that the AS 1851 tolerances are negligible under the contract. So it's table 1 of technical specification number 3 is what takes precedence. We've also set out the frequency into the technical specifications, but we have said that these may be different to the offers response workbook. Now, the offers response workbook takes precedence. So we've got sites such as the such as some stadiums where they've requested fire hydrants to be tested quarterly instead of 6 monthly, and that's identified in the response workbook. So that's a pricing workbook. So have a look in there and make sure that you keep an eye out for that. Now, previously, when we went out to tender, there was a lot of how we do things that wasn't included in the tender. So we've included all of them into these tender documents, such as how to do a fire flow test. It might seem pretty simple, but filling out a Form 72s isn't done right. What do you do when there's when the design criteria isn't known? What we look for in Form 72s, how to send the Form 72s back to us. We set out all of that in here. So have a good read of all the requirements for fire hydrant systems. But my main point is that within the technical specification, we've put in some of the how-tos into the technical specifications. So do have a good read of them. Use of nozzles and orifices, that's a clause that you should have a read of. So we've gone to the Building Codes Queensland and clarified what hydrant standard applies, and we've applied that to the contracts. If there are no how-tos, you'd immediately go from the frequencies straight down to a schedule. Now the schedules are tendered in this manner, as per AS 1851 with the following special condition. So if any special conditions apply, we'll set it out here. So we're not copying and pasting the tables out of standard into technical specifications anymore. We're saying do it as per the standard, but with this additional item or this rewording. So for fire hydrants, we basically say, table 4.4.4, item blah, blah, blah. Delete what's written in the standard and replace it with this. So we've just clarified that we want O-rings, seatings, washers to all be done on fire hydrants and fire hydrant valves. So the fire hydrant technical specification is quite detailed, but a typical standard that's quite simple and laid out is the fire hose reel. So the fire hose reel will basically say, there's your frequency, 6 monthly, yearly, and your routine services, as per AS 1851 with the addition of putting in an anti-tamper breakable cord into it. So read through them all. They're quite presented in a more simplified manner. Fire pump sets, we've included battery replacements and control and starter batteries. Fire detection, we want you to replace the batteries instead of doing the load test on the batteries. EWIS systems, you got to do it outside of business hours or the major services. Fire doors, we want you to put a label on the doors. Yeah, so have a look through them all. It's quite clear. Any questions during tenders, submit them through the QBuild procurement. Now, so when we're evaluating the tender offers, the evaluation panel will consist of 3 people generally. It can consist of more, but it'll generally be 3 people. So this will comprise of someone from procurement, someone from a technical area. So that might be a person who manages fire service maintenance contracts. And we'll have someone from our one of our clients. We'll partner along and help out with evaluations as well. So you can understand where we're saying that we can only evaluate what you submit to us. There's 2 out of 3 people there who've got no involvement with your previous history of that, so they won't know how you do your day-to-day job, who you are possibly. So it's quite important for you to populate all that data into the non-pricing workbook. We've got a 2-stage approach. So the non-pricing criteria is evaluated first, and then we do a couple of short listings who will move forward and evaluate their pricing workbooks. As the pricing workbooks are quite extensive, you can understand that we want to make sure people meet the non-price criteria first. And again, it's reiterated, provide as much detail as possible in the workbook to ensure scoring is maximized. The tender documents, so it's an encompassing contract. So all the documents that are issued to you at tender, including the links to the working with QBuild, to the tendering standard, all of that is all included. For some of the works, if you've got no WAP, you can't do any work. So workplace health and safety is quite important for our clients as well. As I said earlier, we're going to include the contract management plan, and I'll just quickly go through that template. This is provided to you within the tender documents and tender package, but it's quite extensive. We basically talk about a communication plan. Communication is very important to us. It's very important to the KPIs. We want an open, transparent communication that's two-way flowing. We want monthly meetings. We want any issues daily or by the hour that are identified to be flagged to us. Our people who manage the contract are managing all that comms and actioning all of that straight away. Meetings, we aim to have monthly meetings, but if you're managing your contract in a superb way, hopefully, we might go to bi-monthly meetings or even quarterly meetings. We also talk about escalation meetings where we might have to deal with issues or complaints on sites, or we want to escalate performance issues through to our regional director. We talk about KPIs, so what the objectives are, the KPIs are, how we report them, the benefit of reporting them, and how to track it as well. All the KPI scores for the entire length of the contract, we'll always look at that and show you where you're going good and how you're improving. We talk about special access, so we've got a whole heap of sites where we got very specific requirements. What those requirements are in the document, so have a read of them while you're tendering. We also talk about service reports, how to manage your service reports, what details are required on them before you submit them to us through the web portal. And again, just on that point, everything that you submit to us through the web portal, we evaluate when we're doing our invoice, when we're reviewing your invoice claim. So it's important that all the service reports are legible, completed, fully supported, and signed by the client. For housing sites, of course, there's no clients on those particular sites to sign them. So for housing sites, we don't expect them to be signed. We talk about baseline data. So in there, I talk about what the sound performance is, where baseline data applies, and only when it does apply. We talk about interface testing because we'll have to get you to liaise with the mechanical contractors, or we'll work with you and the mechanical contractor. It talks about that there. It talks about critical defects, where to send a notice to, that is to the site, it's also to us, how to manage that, how to get it rectified, what to do in the interim after critical defect has been identified. Let's say fire hydrant system is offline, the interim arrangement will be that you notify the regional fire brigade to say that there's an impairment on the system. And we want everything actioned quickly with the intent of getting all repairs done within 1 month. We talk about quotes, no quoting process, where to send the quotes to, a couple of examples. And then the fire annual testing is just a reflection of what's written into the technical specification. And a couple of other points. So again, read through the document. It's a very good document. It's been written and approved on over the years. And it's very specific to fire, or this document is very specific to fire. It'll give you an understanding of what we expect from you, but also what you expect from QBuild. So again, it's a two-way document that tells us how to work with each other every day and how we expect to work with each other and what we want to do. Of course, the contract management plan doesn't take away from the specifics of the technical specifications, conditions of contract, conditions of offer. They're the ones that are the binding documents in the contract. We just provided the plan to you for information purposes. So the whole way throughout the entire tendering process, all queries and emails, we ask you to send them to QBuild SEQ SOA queries at hpw.qle.gov.au. That email address is on the conditions of offer document, and also the person who will be reviewing your technical question, their name will be in the condition of offer document as well. So that'll be Julie or Jackie. Now, we've excluded their telephone numbers because it's extremely difficult as a procurement officer to be able to source the documents that you're questioning and to evaluate them and to discuss that with the likes of Carol Warhurst or myself. So we ask you to always put it in emails. In that way, whenever we go back with an answer to you, it's a comprehensive answer and it addresses hopefully all of your question or in a detailed manner, and that's been responded to by anyone who would need to review it. So if you had a technical question, you know, what is an orifice? Jackie or Julie may not know that answer, so they would have to go and get a technical expert to help address that answer and then provide that response to you. So if you can keep them all in emails, that'll be very much appreciated. When you can put in a tender, but we can only award tenders to a contractor who is registered with QBuild. By registering with QBuild, you agree to the conditions of working with QBuild for contractors document. So please either commence registration now or, you know, during the tendering process if you're really keen on winning a contract. I don't believe registration costs any money, but you'll also get opportunities on the Q Tenders and E-Tenders webpage as they pop up. As you can see from the hyperlink, the tenders are available on etender.hpw.qld.gov.au. And of course, you can just Google Q Tenders or Google E-Tender Queensland Government, and you'll be able to get a link to that straight away. Now, has anybody got any questions or any queries? So I'll just go through some of the questions I've come through here. Wayne wants to know, will ISO accreditation be required to tender? No. ISO accreditation is not required to tender, and it's actually not even required to perform the contract. But a contractor who has ISO accreditation will have demonstrated their ability to maintain good quality systems, and it's an advantage, but it's not necessary. And that's what Carol has just said there as well. It's not mandatory. Anybody else have any questions? Sorry, I'll just allow people on mute. Okay, so I've allowed people to unmute, so if you have any questions, you can please feel free to ask them now, or you can actually send an email through to QBuild SEQ SOA queries email address. That's the email address what the registration came from through Eventbrite.
Well presented, Ron.
No worries. Thank you, Kevin.